what is normal is judged by what is typical, not by what is natural or what is healthy. This is Gabor Mate and Gordon Neufeld saying it. What do you think about it?
I really appreciate this quote because growing up, there were a lot of things I saw in life, either in the society around me or in culture or in people's way of being, that didn't feel right to me, or didn't feel not a matter of right or wrong. So I want to pick a different word. They didn't feel natural to me, or didn't make sense to me. And when I asked, you know, my mom or my dad, or I'd ask around me, they'd say, but everybody's doing this, or this is the way things are done, or this is the way we're supposed to do it. And it's only when, you know, I started my journey, and some years back, I started to question and I started to look into things, I realized that things happen because they become normal, not necessarily because they are natural, and not necessarily because that's the way, you know, we have to be. And I love it because I can question, and I love to question, and I feel it's very empowering. And even if I don't change the ways that I was accustomed to being, it's not about, you know, being rebellious or changing, but just being able to question and to understand why certain things happen, and then having the choice to decide whether this is natural for me and I want to do that or not. So I love it because it opens the door to questioning and seeing what is normal, or, you know, what is natural.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel the same. And it's also that when you start questioning yourself, questioning what is going on around, you find out interesting things, like when this started to become normal. Because as the eras changed, or the centuries changed, things got different. And what was normal some 100 years ago is not normal anymore, and the other way around. And so to always question, I like this very much. And I would also say that healthy, for instance, when it comes to children, I think we have forgotten this a lot. Or that because we are so trained to follow the normal, we forget sometimes to listen to them and to allow them to tell us that maybe it is not natural or healthy for them. And we just go on. And I'm thinking here there are so many examples. For instance, when to start kindergarten, or socialization, that is such a big topic for some people. Like they must be together with other children, or to socialize, or to, and if we stop and we look at it, it's actually not just about other children, for instance, right? Because then they just go to the same age group, they know how to talk, maybe a 5-year-old to a 5-year-old, but they don't really know how to address adults or older kids or younger kids. So to always take this step back and to question, and to be curious, as we said in other episodes, to always be curious, and to allow the kids to talk and to tell us, and to have their dialogue, not just something coming from us and from culture saying it's just the way we do it.
And it, you know, it brings a sense of openness to allow the questioning. I don't feel like, you know, growing up, to ask why our culture did certain things, or, you know, why we adhere to certain values, it was sometimes taken as disrespectful to even question. But I think it's more of the curiosity of a child, just to try and understand, and maybe even then fall in love more with what it is. But try to understand why things are a certain way. And it really brings more connection when someone understands why something happens. And when you were talking, I feel very inclined to maybe speak of some examples of natural versus normal, and maybe, you know, you can share some as well. So school, you spoke about when to start kindergarten. I think the whole topic of school is one. Many years ago, I wrote a post, you know, a couple of weeks ago, on school and the education system, because many years ago, it wasn't a formalized institution system, right? It was, you know, families and communities would teach children how to live, how to farm, how to knit, how to cook, how to take care of themselves, how to take care of, you know, their environment. And then with years and with the requirements of the more now modern world, that's how the institutions came to place, with the benefits of the mass learning and, you know, teaching in mass and the economics of it, and for the parents to go into the workforce and many other reasons, this came into effect. So this has become the normal now. So when I considered, you know, homeschooling for my children where I'm from, this is not normal at all. And it was, you know, questioned, it was criticized, and, you know, frankly speaking, it's not something that I can do here. But the natural way, or the way things were, wasn't that. So that's one example. I don't know if you want to speak of that before we move on to something else.
Another word came to mind when you were talking, and that is standardize, or to have standards. And we are so used, at least, let's say in my previous job, right, in a multinational company, it was a plant, and we were so used to standardize everything and the processes and to have everything flow. But as you were talking, I'm thinking, these are people. Like, from a very early age on, we want them to be standardized. We want to apply the same standard to every child. And we kind of leave aside the uniqueness of each one of us. And then I feel that we lose so much in that. And it starts with creativity, but not just that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where it's difficult, when a child does not fit in the standards. So speaking of schools or speaking of systems, when a child does not fit in the standard, then it becomes very difficult. The next example that comes to mind is, you know, related to health, smoking cigarettes. I mean, I remember when cigarettes were advertised on TV and on billboards, and smoking was allowed in airplanes, and a mother would be, you know, smoking, you know, without awareness of the impact that it can have on the fetus. And now it's very different. You know, then that was normal, and now that's not normal. So then it just becomes clear how, okay, so how did this change? You know, the awareness comes, the questioning comes, the impact of this comes, and a lot of other, you know, trends that are health related.
Yeah, the one that I've been thinking recently, for instance, it's, you know, how you are not allowed to smoke near playgrounds. It still happens a lot of times, unfortunately. But why don't we do that? Because children don't do what we say, they do what we do. They repeat what we do, right? And then we say, don't smoke and don't drink near playgrounds, right? And I was thinking, there is not yet a notice there, don't use screens near playgrounds. Because I see so many parents that just scroll, and sometimes I'm that parent also, that are just looking down at their phones and sometimes even ignoring the kids. And that's also very normal nowadays, but it doesn't mean that it's healthy or it's something natural, right? Where I'm also going, because one of the talks of the often talks in park where I go with the kids is, so what are you cooking? What's cooking? What are you cooking? And it's the norm here, right? It's normal to cook, to have at least one cooked meal, but it's normal to have two, to have something like a soup and then a second course, and sometimes not to have it just for lunch, but also for dinner. And there's such a burden on mothers because you have to give them to eat, right? That's normal. And sometimes I'm thinking, yeah, but there's just so much overwhelm. And if you just go, I don't know, some 100 kilometers away in another country, there it's normal to have maybe a sandwich and a sandwich for lunch and to have dinner in the evening. Or, you know, this is so different. And our normal doesn't stand anymore, just some 100 kilometers away from us. And then I always like to stop and to take a step back and to think here, is this too overwhelming? What is going on? Do I need to do this? Are there other ways? Can we offer them something healthy, even if not cooked? Or, you know, to take off the burden from this, you have to.
I love that, Anca, and I love how you mentioned cross borders and in other countries, because, and that's what I really appreciated, with a friendship with you, for example, is to learn so much about your culture and how you live, and then same with me, and then apart and away from our culture, what are the values that we really adhere to, and how it's the same and also different, and how I can see something that's so normal in my country, and that could be like something that's just not understandable in another country, or something that's not accepted or very surprising. So I really appreciate that. I really do. And I think also, speaking of normal and natural, fashions and what a person wears, what styles, also gender wise, is it normal for a boy to have long hair? Is it normal for a girl to play football? Is it not, all these identities that have been, I want to say, conditioned or crafted over the years. So even football, is it normal for girls to play football? Well, when was football created? This is not something that was, for forever. These are all things that came with time. So who decided this is normal and this is not? I just really love the ability to question and then slowly peel off everything that is attached, and to then pick and choose what feels right to a person.
I would also insert here another term, which is normalize. And to normalize, and I'm thinking here of feelings, for instance, and this is Dr. Shefali, who talks in her latest book, but not just, about normalizing feelings. And yeah, it's normal for boys, for instance, not to cry, or for kids not to be heard and not to whine and not to complain. And then there are some ways in which they need us and our support to normalize what they are feeling, to normalize the crying of a child, and to normalize a tantrum, for instance, or to normalize feelings. And by doing this, to allow them to actually grow.